Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spotlight On, the NFNLP series where we spotlight people in the field of hypnosis, NLP, EFT, any kind of change work. And today I get to interview Paul Ramsay, who's been around forever. He's kind of like, reminds me of at one point in my life where he was like a bad penny. Everywhere you look, they seem to turn up. You know, and he's done hundreds. And first we'll start talking about, after we do the typical questions, you know, he's done hundreds and hundreds of interviews with hypnotists, and we're going to talk about that and why interviewing other people can be one of the most effective things you can do to not just learn information, but how to build your own brand by linking with other people in a roundabout sort of way. So welcome, Paul. My first question is, how long have you been in the world of change work? We'll call it that. And where did you come from to come into change work?
First of all, you just called me a bad penny.
That's a good thing.
Penny?
But you keep turning up.
Second of all, you said I'm only 45, Will. I haven't been around forever. That may sound like I fart dust or something.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I always love joking with you and hanging out with you. So I got into change work, I think, in sort of the thematic way that a lot of people get into change work, which was a roundabout way, right? Like, so I graduated from college in '96, and I was formally trained to be an English teacher. And so my initial attempt at wanting to help change people's lives was to be an educator. And I did that for 3 years. That was it. In 3 years, I burned out. I was like, this is not for me. I love working with people, but I didn't like some of the other things that came with it. And I didn't like living paycheck to paycheck on a teacher's salary. And so I actually went back to my alma mater. I went back to the University of New Hampshire, and I worked in residential life in student affairs. So I ran a dorm, and I did that job for 5 years, and it still let me keep working with students because I was still like in my head, I was like, I want to work with young people and make an impact. So again, running a dorm is sort of like being a guidance counselor and a hall monitor, and it's like this combination job where, like, you know, you try to keep them from getting into trouble, you try to help them figure out what they want their college experience to be like, and you help them try to open their mind to new ways of thinking about themselves and the world. So for me, that was sort of the next iteration of doing change work and educational work. And while I was doing that job, I used to put on one social program in my building every month so my residents would have something fun to do. And I used to hire a retired hypnotist to come in once a year and do a hypnotism demonstration right in my main lounge. And the third year in a row that I brought him in, he offered to start teaching me. He told me that he thought I would be good at it. And I put it off for a whole year. The fourth year that I brought him in, I knew I was getting to the end of my time in that job. I had finished my master's degree at that point. And I knew that that wasn't a job that you do for 20 years and then get your gold watch. So I said, hey, is that offer still good? And he said, yeah, of course. And I started training with him, and I had 163 co-eds in my building. So when I got to the point where he's like, okay, you can start hypnotizing people. Don't do anything. Just hypnotize them and take them out of state. And I put out an email blast to the building, said, you want to know what it's like to be hypnotized? Come on down. And it was like a revolving door. And very quickly, I was like, oh, this isn't a hobby. This is the thing. That was 2003. And then so I was like, well, I know I can't start seeing clients and doing stage shows and say, you should hire me because Bob Chase trained me in my living room. So I went and I got fully certified by the National Guild of Hypnotists in 2004. And then I left that. I left that job at the university at the end of the contract year, and I went right into it full time. So I started in 2004. It's been 15 years. Best thing I ever did. Best job ever.
Okay. Well, 15 years, you're officially an old timer. Because as you know, not everybody stays in our field.
That's true.
But so what are you really, really interested in the world of hypnosis, and change work in general? But like, what is your current fascination, and where do you do most of your time? I know you do stage shows, you do some clinical work, and you do training. So what's your big thing you're studying, you're getting into, and how do you spend your time as a hypnotist?
Yeah. So I spend more and more of my time with my partner, Sandra, who is also a hypnotist, and we're focusing more and more on training, on teaching hypnotists. We're going back to our roots. She was an English teacher like me, and we have these degrees in education. It's like, why aren't we using them more? And we, you know, we came together 3 years ago and decided we were going to share our life together and build a new business together, combine our businesses. And you know, really quickly we thought, well, we can keep doing what we've been doing, seeing clients and doing different, but the way to really make an impact on the world is let's really do a good job of training as many hypnotists as we can so that they go out and have a great impact on other human beings, and we can feel like we're the beginning of that ripple effect. So we're spending more and more time on building really exceptional training experiences, and building online curriculum and live curriculum and combining, kind of hybridizing those. I have been really interested over the past couple years in two things. I've been really interested in learning more about gamma states. Everyone always talks about the 4 brainwave sets, right? Everyone always talks about how you move from beta to alpha, alpha to theta, and then if you go to sleep, you go to delta. People don't talk a lot about gamma. In fact, a lot of hypnotists don't even know that gamma exists, and I'm fascinated by it. I have this instinct that it is a really untapped area of our brain activity and that we should be looking more at it. So I'm trying to really learn how world-class meditators create gamma states and how we could maybe do that in hypnosis, and how we could use that to help clients get really great results. And then the other thing that I'm trying to learn more and more about and is the process of myelination and how the brain myelinates nerve pathways based on your usage of those pathways. And I'm trying to find a really nice parallel for that in doing change work with people. I think I love The Talent Code, which is a book. The author's name unfortunately escapes me right now, but if your listeners search The Talent Code, you'll find it, where this gentleman went around and talked to he traveled all over the world and interviewed people that worked in hotbeds of talent. So he went to like the Russian tennis school that produces the most top 25 female tennis performers in the world. And he said, how are you doing this? And he went to Brazil and talked to soccer coaches there about how are you producing such amazing soccer players? And he went to a music school in New York that produces incredible violin players. And he kept going around to these places that just are far surpassing their peers in creating talent, and asked them, what do they do? And then he analyzed all those interviews and found the common themes. And I just love that kind of stuff. I think that's really applicable for all of us who are doing change work if we can get the right models and the right processes, right? So,
yeah, you're the first person I've heard talk about the myelination and how it goes with melatonin. And you know, a lot of people say, not to be biochemical, but melatonin, it's the base builder of like serotonin, dopamine. You just change. Anyway, I get too technical.
Yeah, I know. It's fun to get geeky.
But yeah, and it's like the guy that studied that is like when you get a new thought, you learn a new behavior, you create a minimum of 2,600 new neural pathways. But within what people do not remember, and I know I've heard you say that, within 3 hours, it drops to 1,300 unless you review it, right? And so it's like, and then it kind of can go with, I'd like your opinion on this, you know, when they look at world-class meditators, those guys that, you know, spend 40 years meditating, what they found, somewhere I got the research, that you can use hypnosis to speed up that learning of because it's all training your brain. That's all it's about, that you can use hypnosis and you can get your brain into the same entrainment patterns in a few days or weeks that it takes other people 30 or 40 years. And that's just absolutely fascinating. When I say that, some people, you know, and it's just like absolutely, you know, whether you want to call it epigenetics or, you know, neuroplasticity, it's all going back to the same place.
Right.
So, yeah. So do you believe that you can speed up what a meditator takes years to do? We can use hypnosis to speed up the process, with the caveat if they do the work.
If they do the work. I would love whatever resources you have about that. I have not actually heard that, so I would love to read more about that. I think that we all tend to think that things have to take longer than they actually have to take. And so thematically, according to your question, I'm like, yeah, I get, like, I think we can do a lot faster than we think we can do it if we just have the right tools and techniques and procedures. And so I'm always interested in how to do that. I love that idea. Send me whatever you got. I'll read it.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, and one guy that studied that says and he understands why it got popular, but he goes, one of the worst things we've had in the last 25 years is the idea it takes 10,000 hours to master something, because you see examples all the time of people mastering things much quicker.
Right.
And some people never master it.
So that's in the talent code. He breaks down these concepts of deep practice and shallow practice. And he addresses that. He says what most people are doing is they're doing shallow practice. They're just doing a ton of practice, but not necessarily looking at the intricacies of what they're practicing. And these people who work in these talent hotbeds, they're doing deep practice. So they're breaking down physical movements. They're breaking down, if it's music, they're breaking down the exact finger techniques and breathing techniques. And they are just meticulously on their students about, nope, here's what you need to do. And because they're doing that, the students are so accelerated in their learning, and their quality of performance is better because they're not, as I have a 10-year-old. We were out shooting hoops the other day, and he's like, I just, it's hard, Dad. And I was like, buddy, you got to remember, he's like, do you think if I practice a lot, I'm going to get better at this? And I said, well, yeah, but you got to remember, if you're practicing the wrong way, and so because he's 10 and his hands aren't quite big enough yet, he tends to do the two-handed, and I said, so every time you're doing that two-handed, one's pushing harder than the other. And, I broke it down for him. And I said, if you get that one hand, and his mom tried to teach him at one point, but he's like, but it rolls off. And I go, then it's balance. And so if you break it down, I'm like, if you practice the right way, you're going to get better. But if you keep practicing the flawed way, you're just going to get better at the flawed way. So.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, when you look at the people that master any skill, they're a master at the intricacies.
Yeah.
Right. And I like the analogy of, and I want your opinion on this. I always say, you don't necessarily rise to the level of your dreams. You will always fall to the level of your associates. So who are you hanging around with? When you look at high performers, those hotbeds, and I remember one of the things that guy said, they're there and they're hanging out with other high performers. Guess what? Their best performance may be average in that group. So they have to up their game. It's like, when I was doing a lot of the sports stuff, I remember I had a kid who was like all-state football, 100-yard dash champ. He gets the scholarship to the University of Notre Dame. He comes back and he's like, he's broken. He's a broken 18-year-old. I go, well, what's wrong? He goes, there are linemen faster than me at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
There are skinny little guys that are stronger than me. He goes, for the first time in my life, I've got to work. And no one taught him how to work.
The book for that I love is Carol Dweck's mindset book, right? Where she breaks down this idea of fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and how when you take kids who have been raised being told that they're exceptional, like just you're a great athlete, you're a great athlete, you're a great athlete, when they finally get around other great athletes who also have the edge because they learned work ethic development, right? Then they're confronted with I'm no longer the best. And what happens for them is they just implode because they've built an identity around being a certain thing. And all of a sudden that identity is confronted, right? Whereas if you build a kid up with, you're such a hard worker, I love how you always keep at it, I love how you keep training, I love how you keep learning. When you make it all about praising skill development, then when they get confronted with a challenge, they go, well, I just need to keep working. I just need to keep learning. I just need to keep, and I'll get there. And the resiliency difference between those two groups is not even close.
Oh, yeah.
It's an
But
chasm.
it's like they always say that, I forget, somewhere there's research that the most successful people in the world have IQs between like 124 and 126 and one to about 138, right? They're
Yeah.
bright and they're almost brilliant, but maybe not brilliant, because they work, right? And when
Yeah.
you look at truly brilliant people, because I heard Bill Clinton once say that the best thing he was trained as a kid is you're not special, because he has
Yeah.
an IQ of like 166. I mean, but what did I hear him say once? He didn't even he never even went to half his law classes and he maxed everything out, right?
Wow.
But when he became a Rhodes Scholar and went to Oxford, everything changed. And we have a mutual friend, I heard one time say Captain Billy, we won't use his whole name. He
Right.
goes, when he started doing seminars at MIT, that woke him up that there are some
Right.
people I can't even, I'm a match compared to their 1,000-watt lumens over
Yeah.
here. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, and it goes to that. But I like your thing about identity, because here's what I think, and I want your opinion on this, because I want someone that thinks like you do. You know, you see a young man or woman, will be politically correct in the year 2019. Let's say they join, and I'll use the Marine Corps. They join the Marine Corps. So between the ages of 18 or 19, if they're enlisted, or 21, 22 if they're an officer, and for the next 4 to 6 years, their first enlistment, they physically train every day, right? Out of that 4 to 6 years, almost every day, there's physical training. We'll use the Marine Corps because that's what they do. So they're 4.0 Marines. I mean, they're dressed right, they're carrying on, they're doing this, and they're in shape. Then they get out of the Corps, and you see them 2 years later. They're 100 pounds overweight. They haven't made their bunk since they got out of the Corps, right? And so a general one time asked, is it that people are inherently lazy? Right? Because if you got into the thing about habits, that means, out of four years, probably 1,400 days, they exercise. That should become a habit, right? And yet they do it religiously, and then they get out and they drop. It's not there. And he was the one that started talking about, well, it's your peers. When you're in the Corps, they're holding you to this standard, and you want to rise to the standard of your peers. Great. And then they get out, they go back to the people that don't have those standards, and they fall to that. And I think with that, something you lit up in me, a lot of it goes to their identity. Are they the type of person that just exercises, or are they not? It's not that they can't exercise daily. We see it with pro athletes too. They work out, and then when they quit, they never work out again. So tell me your idea about identity and how we work with people's identity in some ways.
So I'm going to shoot off a little bit from what you're saying. I think directly it gets to identity, but I think more directly it's about what our good friend Tony Robbins frames as your 6 basic human needs. I think what you get is people who their needs for certainty, significance, love and connection, variety, growth, and contribution are in different priority levels, right? So if you're the Marine who gets your sense of certainty through staying physically at a certain level of readiness, for whatever challenge I'm going to have in life, I need to know that I'm physically ready, then you keep working out. If you go into the Marines because at the time you went into the Marines, you didn't know what else to do with your life, and you just needed the certainty of having hot meals and something to do, right? Then when you go home, you don't have, that's all. And if you can get your hot meals and something to do a different way, then you don't worry about staying in shape. It's all like, what's the actual thing that's getting your needs met? If you go in and you go to the Marines because you want to feel part of something bigger than yourself, right? You want to feel part of a community. You want to feel like you're, connected to other human beings in that way. And so you follow along with the culture while you're there, but then you get out of the Marines and you go into a corporate job that you really believe in, and you feel like you fit into that corporate culture, and it doesn't include staying physically fit. You know what I mean? Like, your needs are what drive your choices and your behaviors. So, but I'll tell you, the Marines that I have met, who really build being a Marine into their identity, who really do, not like I was in the Marines, but once a Marine, always a Marine. they're always physically fit because that's part of what Marines do for them, right? So definitely there's a place for you to take on the identity markers like permanently. And I think, it comes down to, do you look at it as I am a Marine for life, or I was in the Marines at one point in my life?
Oh, okay. Well, this could also transfer over to everything when we deal with people with weight loss or smoking or anything that we're dealing with. Cool. Tell us real quick, and then we'll do some kind of technique. Tell us real quick a couple of your funnest or most interesting things you've done with hypnosis with clients.
All right. Let's see. My favorite story, my absolute favorite story, is a stage hypnotism story. And, in our community, there's a fair amount, not a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are a fair amount of consulting hypnotists who really sort of look down their nose at stage hypnotism and feel like it portrays the rest of the profession in a bad light. And I always tell this story as a example of nothing could be further from the truth. I think stage hypnotism presents us with a wonderful opportunity to open people's eyes to the power of hypnotism. And this story really fits with that. So I was doing a stage show in Florida, probably about a good 10 years ago now. And it was opening week at the college. So big. Everyone's excited. They've been back at school for a day. It's their entertainment. They just moved in. And that first night, I'm their entertainment. And there's about 600 people in the room, high energy, having fun. I've got about 15 students on stage. We get through the whole show. And at the end of the show, what I like to do is I like to wipe their memory and have them forget everything. Because early on, what I discovered was that for some people, if they don't have a way of really being proven that they've been hypnotized, people would walk up to me after the show and go, yeah, I just don't think I was hypnotized. And I'm like, you just spent an hour and a half dancing and goofing around. And they're like, yeah, I just was kind of doing it. So what I figured out was if I wipe their memory and then build a way for it to come back quickly, that moment of 1 minute I didn't even think there was a show to now I remember everything seals all that, right? So what I would do is I would wipe their memory of the show, and then I would tell them that when I dismissed them, they would leave the stage, and when they walked down the stage and their first footstep touched the floor at the bottom of the stairs, they'd remember. And it was always, you see a facial change come over and everything. It's a cool and fun way to end the show. And then I don't have anyone coming up and saying, I don't think I was hypnotized. So I built the whole suggestion. I get done and I emerge them from hypnosis. And at the moment of emergence, they forget everything and they think they're just there for the beginning of the show, really. So immediately upon emergence, one young lady sort of assesses what's going on, and she has forgotten that she came up on stage. So to her, she's just on stage in front of 600 people. And she immediately, her posture shows me that she's uncomfortable. And so she's like 3 people down the line from where I am. So I start working the first person, and I'm keeping an eye on her, and I work them, and then I go, okay, why don't you just go ahead? And and then I see that she's turning in her chair and she's looking to the back of the stage. Like she doesn't want to look at the crowd at all. And I'm like, all right, she's clearly stressed. I'm going to skip the next 2 people. I think she was like 4th. And I'm going to go right to her. So I skip them and I go to her and I gently tap her on the shoulder. I say, hey, can I help you? And she won't turn. She doesn't want to look at the audience. And she goes, what am I doing here? And I wasn't ready for that. I thought she'd turn to me. So I held the microphone. I go, I'm sorry, what did you say? And I held the mic. She goes, what am I doing here? And I go, oh, well, you were in the hypnosis show. And she goes, no, I would never do that. And I go, but you did. You've been up here with me for over an hour. She goes, no, you don't understand. I have terrible, terrible stage fright. I would never, ever come up on a stage like this, ever. And I got so happy because I knew I had a moment to give her a gift, right? And so I said, listen, you don't have to look at the audience, but just turn and look at me. And I was to the side of her. And she turned and looked at me. I said, just really focus on what I'm sure. I said, it's really simple. I'm going to let you go. I don't want you to be up here and be uncomfortable. Go ahead. And when you leave, you walk down the stairs, you get to the bottom of the stairs, you're going to understand that you don't ever have to be afraid of being on stage again, ever. Okay? And she goes, whatever. She just wants to get off, you know? And so I go, go ahead, go. And she stands up and she walks, she goes down the stairs. And when she gets to the bottom of the stairs and her footstep touches the floor, you would have thought she got hit by a bolt of lightning, like her whole body, you know? And then she turned and looked at me and she smiled, and 600 people stood up and gave her a standing ovation. And it was the coolest, I get emotional too. It was the coolest moment of any stage show I've ever done. And I always go back to that. I've had other cool stuff too and funny stuff. But I think like when you bring people in, just thinking the minimum we're going to do tonight is have some laughs and have a good time. But if you can get through to someone like that and you can get them to see that because they can do hypnosis, they can change the way they think about themselves and what they're capable of, that's awesome. But then to be able to have a moment once in a while like that where you do it right then and there for someone, priceless. Like I have the coolest job ever.
Cool. All right. And if you're watching this, make sure you click like and share, leave a comment, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, wherever it is, like and share, leave a comment. And before we do our little technique thing, tell us how, if people want to get in touch with you, Mr. Paul, how do they get in touch with you? What's the easiest ways?
Well, I'm on Facebook, so that's usually a pretty good way. I have, I'm on Facebook in several ways. Paul Ramsay can be found on Facebook, and there's, of course, a lot of Paul Ramsays, but I'm pretty easy to spot. Actually, my profile picture is a picture of me when I was 5 with Spider-Man, so if that's the one you're looking for. We've got our website, our training site is besthypnosistraining.com. And so if you want to look more into what we offer in terms of hypnotism training or stuff like that, you're always welcome to go there. The big thing is I'm pretty active on Facebook. So I would say search me out on Facebook and connect with me there.
Okay. And right before we do have you demo a quick technique or well, you already shared some really cool stuff, by the way, the thing about wiping the memory so it comes back. I've heard other people do that in a clinical setting, so it comes. Anyway, I know you've interviewed literally hundreds and hundreds of people because you started doing interviews for the National Guild of Hypnotists, their big conference, and you've also, and done other interviews like that. Quick question, what have you learned by interviewing all these hundreds of hypnotists, some of the leaders in the field, some of the new people? And what do you think about the idea that, interviewing people is a great way to build your brand and also add to what you do?
Yes. Interviewing has been and continues to be such a gift for me in my professional development and my personal relationships with my colleagues. I think if you really want to get really serious about hypnotism or personal development, interviewing people is such a great way to accelerate your knowledge and your understanding of what we do and, the different ways that we can do it. It's been so awesome to talk with so many different professionals and hear them talk about the different ways that they look at doing change work and the different ways that they like to do change work. And there's just so much, there's so much that you just very quickly understand you just can't do it all because it takes too much time and energy, but you can, really start to go, I love that. I should start doing that. Or, and it's just so great. There's so much to learn. And in doing that, you build some nice relationships. I've had some great opportunities for collaboration come out of interviewing people and just feeling like you build pretty good rapport and then getting a chance to do things with them after the interview. Okay,
cool. All right. Yeah, I know you've interviewed me a few times. I just, I think it's great. And I used to do more podcasts and getting back into it to interview people because I always realize I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And then when I find out I don't know something, then I either you know, I can either learn it or, you know, or like the current world, just deny that it's there. But, but anyway, some cool stuff. And again, like you said too, you can't do everything. So do what you want, or what you love. So anyway, what little technique were you going to kind of demo for us? But besides all the cool
you know, I was thinking of a different one, but now I realize, like, in terms of like something small that can have a really big impact, is looking at your language cues that you use with clients. And so, you know, and I learned this from my partner, Sandra, so I'm kind of stealing this, but we use it a lot. And so when we're talking with clients and they start to tell the story, right? Or they start to speak the limiting belief, you know, Sandra taught me that just using the phrase "up until now" can have a huge impact. And what happens is, at first it functions as it's a pattern interrupt, right? So they say, well, just my whole life, it's just been so hard to lose weight. And you just step right in and go, "Up until now." And they'll a lot of times they'll go, "What?" Because they're all ready to start going on and telling the story of how hard it's been to lose weight, you know? And, well, you know, I get what you're saying. Up until now, it's been hard to lose weight, but now you're here, you chose to come here, and we're ready to go. And you're going to find it's just so easy to lose weight now. Isn't that great? Okay. And when you do an intake with a client, you really think about it, there's always multiple times when you can use that. It's never just once. People have such limiting language about themselves. And when you keep consistently just "up until now," and Sandra taught me that, and she gets all the credit in the world for that. I'll tell you, it's so cool to watch our students and our clients adopt that. They get to a point where if you do it consistently, they learn it as a skill. And then they catch themselves, their level of awareness, they police themselves more, and then they say a limiting belief, and they stop and go, "Well, up until now." And then right? And so then that sets you up to go, exactly. And so now, why is it going to be different, right? So then now you can future pace them, right? And they go, "Well, it's going to be different now because I get that I have this resource," and blah, 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 blah. And you go, exactly. And, you know, and they're just doing the work. You're just facilitating it, you know? So learn to use "up until now" as a pattern interrupt that moves people to new possibilities. It's really, really cool.
Oh, that is cool. All right. All right. In fact, I'll name your interview "Up Until Now." That's powerful. Thank you. Yeah, of course, I'm a linguistic guy, neurolinguistics. Everybody forgets the power of that. I heard of, I forget who it was, a guy that's made and lost several fortunes. And he goes, "I've never been broke. I've been between fortunes several times."
That's
and I'm
awesome.
like, and that's just, and if we could wire people's brains up, those little things, your brain goes, like you said, the client goes, "Okay."
Yeah, right?
The brain starts, the pattern's not there.
Right. Yeah. It's so cool.
Cool. All right. Again, how do people get in touch with you, Mr. Paul?
Facebook. I got me on Facebook. besthypnosistraining.com has a page on Facebook, and we got a website.
Okay. And I'll put that down underneath the thing on when I put this out there. I'd like to thank you for sharing with us on Spotlight On, and it's been fun, and I'll see you soon.